Hello, hope you're doing well. Before we jump into today's artwork, I want to let you know that this video has been sponsored by Surfshark. So if you haven't heard of them before, Surfshark is a VPN service, which stands for Virtual Private Network. It's basically a tool that encrypts your data when you're exploring the internet or any other online service, and keeps all of your personal information safe, sound, and secured. Surfshark comes equipped with a whole bunch of useful tools. The Clean Web feature can block ads and protect you from malicious sites while you browse the internet. Its hacking prevention systems keep your devices protected when you're using public Wi-Fi hotspots, and it gives you an extra layer of security when playing online games or sorting out your online banking. And if you want to watch shows or movies that aren't available in your country, you can also easily change your location settings to unlock that sweet geographically limited content. It's also the only VPN service that allows you to do all of that by using one single account across unlimited devices, even at the same time. Surfshark are offering a special discount to all of you guys who watch my channel. If you use the code ABD when you're signing up, it's going to give you a frankly huge 83% off of the cost of a 24-month subscription, plus one whole extra month for free. It's a pretty great deal by anybody's standards, so if you've been considering signing up for a VPN, there's going to be a link for this one both on screen and in the description if you'd like to check it out for yourself and make use of that discount code. Anyway, thank you all very much for listening, and thanks once again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. It's a strange time right now for everybody, but it's made things especially uncertain for independent creators like me, so the support is seriously appreciated. Now, without further ado, let's get on with today's video. Alright, well, welcome to the video everybody. First things first, I hope you're all keeping as happy and healthy as possible throughout this strange period of history that we're all living in, and hopefully you're not going too stir-crazy if you've been quarantined at home for a while. My own at-home setup has been kind of changed up a bit by the whole virus situation, which is to say that I am no longer living alone while me and my family self-isolate. So if I sound in any way more quiet or awkward than usual throughout this video, it's because I am very conscious that my mum can definitely hear me sat in here talking to myself right now. So, you know, that's fun, and not at all embarrassing. Also, fun fact, in choosing to record this today, I've also managed to pick one of the few days this year where the weather here in the UK is actually really nice. So, as I sit here bundled under several duvets in order to insulate my sound properly, I'm not only self-conscious, but also uncomfortably hot. Anyway, the title of this video probably gave this away already, but today I wanted to push through these unusual circumstances and make something that would hopefully be fun for you guys to have a go at home. What with everybody being stuck indoors right now, it seems like as good a time as any to have a go at doing some fun little community activities here and there, try some, different things, and just try to share our creative experiences as much as we can while keeping ourselves physically distanced. And something that I've seen quite a few people asking me to do for a while now is a Draw This in Your Style challenge. I will admit, I'm not entirely up to speed with all of the hip Instagram trends, but to the best of my knowledge, the whole concept of the Draw This in Your Style thing is that one person draws an artwork or a character and puts it out into the world while inviting other people to try and recreate that artwork in their own art styles. And from there, it's just kind of fun to have a go at and see what everybody comes up with. Like I said, it's something that you guys have been asking for a while now, and although it's something that I've mainly seen going around on Instagram, it also looked like it might be a good idea to make a speed paint out of it in case there was anything interesting or helpful to be learned from seeing the way that I put the piece together in the first place. Kind of like, you could watch this and then follow along with my method specifically, or you could just freewheel it completely and make it your own. It's up to you. So that's the context for this anyway. Now let's talk about the piece itself. Because this is a Draw This in Your Style challenge, I didn't want to draw anything super complicated since that seemed like it would be kind of mean, so I decided to just keep things simple and do a single character illustration. I also didn't know whether drawing fan art of existing shows or characters was allowed, or rather I didn't know if it was something that's usually appropriate for a Draw This in Your Style challenge artwork, since it seemed like the kind of thing that could get kind of lost in translation once other people start to take up the challenge and redraw that piece. Like, if I started the challenge with just fan art of a Disney movie or something, then any of the artworks made in response could easily just end up leaning more towards Disney as a reference rather than being more of an independent exploration of everybody's own style. You know what I mean? I don't know, it's probably fine to do fan art pieces for this tag now that I think about it, but in any case I figured it would be best for this artwork to go with an original character design. So I ended up taking a look back at some characters from one of my many old story ideas that I came up with when I was like 12. This story was called Harbingers, and the best way I can summarize the plot was that they were basically the magical, edgy, gothic Avengers. There were about 5 characters in the main group of protagonists, plus a large supporting cast, because I was always physically incapable of just creating one character and being done with it. They would always end up having their own backstory, which would in turn end up bringing more characters into the mix, and the cycle would continue. Of course, they all had their own different roles and abilities as well, that I remember having a lot of fun coming up with while I should have been paying attention to my maths classes. So it was kind of hard to choose just one to redraw for this challenge, since they were kind of all my favourite in different ways. In the end though, I went with this guy. His name was Blythe, he used a scythe, and his whole thing was that he was kind of a scavenger of magical and cursed items who somewhat skirted the limits of legality in his work. Like I said, I always really liked all of the characters from this story, but this guy in particular always had one of the most fun outfits to draw. So I thought it'd be nice to refresh that costume a bit and update his look to make it extra fun for the sake of this challenge. First things first, I roughed out a couple of potential poses in my sketchbook, and then took photos of my favourite ones so that I could import them into my drawing software to use as a base for the final artwork. From there, I quickly refined a few details on the legs on a new sketch layer, and then resized a couple of bits and pieces to fit better inside the canvas before getting on with the inking. And I get asked quite often about what brushes I use for my artwork, and honestly, it's nothing special. More often than not, I just end up using the default circle brush in Paint Tool Sci for most things. For inking, I set it to whatever scale I need, with the minimum size set to about 20 or 30%, and for colouring, it varies wildly depending on what I'm working on. So you know, that's an ABD Illustrates top tip right there. How do you choose what brushes to use? Just pick a pen and pray. I also had it in mind when I started on the digital work for this piece that I really wanted to try and use it as a chance to get more to grips with the colouring style that I used in my last speed paint, since I unintentionally ended up using a kind of solid colour technique for the lighting on that one that I would not normally have tried out. It ended up turning out really nicely on that piece, so I wanted to see if I could try and remember just how I did it so that I could recreate the effect. You will see as this speed paint goes on, however, that my memory kind of failed me in that regard, because this piece gave me a lot of grief when it came to doing the highlights and shading. At first I thought he would look cool with some strong yellow lighting to contrast with all of the red in his design, but because I couldn't remember which blending modes I'd used the last time I tried this technique, I couldn't find a balance that looked right. I used the hue adjustment function a couple of times throughout working on this piece to shift the colours of the highlights around to see what would look best, and in the end I settled on a sort of pinkish purple shade that complemented his palette rather than contrasting with it. Contrasting colours are great for some pieces, but they're also kind of hard to get right, so it's definitely nice working digitally because you're able to check out alternate colour options like that really easily. The shading in this piece also ended up taking on a purplish blue colour, since the cool tones evened out the warm palette pretty nicely. The shadows also ended up being a bit tricky to find the right balance for though, since I wanted them to have that solid colour quality, but didn't want them to overpower or go over any of the colouring on more detailed areas like the checker pattern on his jacket. While trying to figure out the best way to apply the shadows though, I discovered a couple of different layer blending modes that I previously didn't even know were available in Paint Tool Sci. Things like Exclude, Divide, and one that's just called Color, which is really useful for giving your images a specific overlay. Definitely goes to show how important it is to experiment with your style every now and then, because you end up finding out really useful tricks that can help you out in your future work. Recently I've been leaning a lot more into using coloured line work as well, and that's something that I also had a go at for this piece. I don't know what it is about it, but especially with clean line work like mine, colouring the ink in some places brings so much more life into it than if it's all just done in solid black. There is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to choosing the right colours of course, since you don't want to pick a shade so light that the line work disappears entirely, but you also want to pick something bright enough to go nicely with your lighting effects. It's definitely a technique that's worth trying out though, since it can give your stuff a really nice look once you get the hang of it. And actually, if any of you guys watching use Paint Tool Sci yourselves, and you want to have a go at doing coloured line work, it's really easy. All you do is draw your line work as you normally would, using black ink or whatever colour you prefer, and then select your line work layer and click the little checkerboard button on the layers palette. Basically what that does is lock your layer so that you're only able to draw on top of the stuff that already exists on it, which pretty much just makes recoloring whatever you have on that layer way easier. You could also achieve the same thing by putting a clipping layer above your line work layer if you want to maintain your original black inks for whatever reason. It all just depends on what you prefer. You'll also see throughout this footage that I tried out and scrapped a bunch of different backgrounds while working on this piece. Something I've noticed recently while scrolling through my Instagram page is that I upload a lot of artworks that don't have backgrounds, and I wanted to try and challenge myself. I will be the first to admit that I am much more of a character man than a scenery man, so I tend to just avoid drawing backgrounds whenever I can get away with it, And you know what, even though I ended up giving this one a white background too, since I just could not figure out a colour and lighting balance that I was happy with, the important thing is that I tried. I tried and I failed, but you know, you learn more from your mistakes than from anything else, so hopefully this will just set me up better for the next time I try to do a background, because I'll know what not to do. Also, this character, when I first designed him, didn't have quite so many skulls on his outfit, but this time around I wanted to see him fully commit to the aesthetic. Mostly because while I was roughing out the pose sketches for this piece, I had the idea of shaping the top of his boots into a skull pattern to match the zipper of his jacket, and I really liked how they looked. From there, I also thought it'd be cool to add some bone details to his scythe to make it look a bit more personalised than the plain black and red one he had when I originally made him. This piece ended up being a bit more of a struggle than I thought it would be since I decided to try out those new colouring methods, but overall I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and hopefully this gave you at least a halfway decent insight into the whole process. Drawing Blythe again also made me remember just how much fun it was coming up with his story back in the day. So if you'd like to hear more about Harbingers, or see me draw any of the other edgy, goofy characters from it, then do let me know in the comments. I've got like a growing list of old stories that I'd like to talk about on this channel, and I'm sure they'd be a fun one to add to it. Anyway, I'm going to be uploading the finished version of this piece to all of the usual places, the links for which will be in the description if you want to check it out. And like I said, this was made specifically as a draw this in your style challenge artwork thing. I don't know. So if you do indeed want to take part in this challenge and try and have a go at redrawing Blythe in your own style, I'm probably mostly going to be able to keep track of any such posts over on Instagram, so that's going to be the best place to go to post your stuff. If you do want to have a go, please upload your artworks with the tag drawthisinyourstyleABD, because ABDDTIYS is a bit too much of a tongue twister. Alternatively, you can always just tag me in it at ABDillustrates, or if you want to be really thorough, you could do both of those things. I'll be trying to share some of my favourites from the tag over on my Instagram story for at least the next couple of weeks, and more than anything, I just hope that you can all have some fun with this, and that it gives you something nice to take part in and to chat about and share with each other in the midst of everything, well, just in the midst of everything, actually. And obviously I have no idea if any of you are even going to want to have a go at this in the first place, but if that tag does end up filling up with a bunch of your wonderful artworks, for one thing, I would certainly love to see that, but I'd also really encourage all of you guys watching, whether you draw something for this challenge or not, to check out that tag for yourself, and if you see any artworks in there that you particularly love, then go ahead and show them some love. You can leave a comment, drop a like, whatever you want to do. This is just a time in which spreading positivity and communicating with each other is a really precious and important thing, and hopefully it's something that's just going to be made all the better by sharing in something that we all love, which is drawing stuff. That's quite enough from me anyway, so for now, thank you all very much for tuning into this video. Once again, I hope you're all staying as safe, happy, and healthy as you possibly can, and I hope to see you all again next time.